Some situations where like Caitlin's stuck guarding Kelsey and Kelsey's, knocking her off the ball and Caitlin gets called for a foul and she starts yelling at the refs like, she's grabbing me, and all of the coaches from WNBA teams who were sitting there watching are just cracking up. Kelsey had one situation where she sort of finished through traffic. She'd been struggling a little bit, got through to the hoop, just like yells right in like Becky Hammon and Nikki Fargas's face, and they're just like cracking up like
Don't just glance at the highlights. Study the reactions unfolding on that floor. Kelsey Plum physically bumping Caitlin Clark off her spot. Caitlin snapping back at officials, furious about being held. Veteran WNBA coaches on the sidelines laughing in disbelief. That wasn't a casual tune-up or friendly run. That was an intense, high-stakes fight for an Olympic roster position, happening live inside USA Basketball's training camp in North Carolina. And according to Sabrina Merchant of The Athletic, who was actually present inside the gym for all 3 days, those sessions may have completely reshaped the narrative around Olympic team selection. The way she detailed Caitlin Clark's presence and impact makes one thing clear. This wasn't an athlete trying to earn a chance. This was a competitor asserting dominance, delivering proof, confidence, and undeniable credibility that she already belongs on that Olympic stage.
Being back on the court, you also got a quote out of Sue Bird about her being impressed with Caitlin just being engaged while she was out and getting back to being able to play. A little bit about what Caitlin looked like on the court, how much fun she was having, how important it was. And then someone else, Angel Reese on the other side, talking about Chicago. That was the article I was not expecting.
Yeah, so we'll start with Caitlin. Obviously, she suffered a lot of just a bevy of injuries in her sophomore season, played her last game on July 15th, even before All-Star Weekend. This was her first real 5-on-5 action since.
Here's where the entire conversation takes a sharp turn. Caitlin Clark hadn't stepped into real, competitive basketball since July 15th, 2024, the moment plantar fasciitis ended her Indiana Fever season early. From that point on, there were no games, no 5-on-5 reps, just long months dedicated to recovery, treatment, and disciplined rehabilitation. Now compare that to the 4 Phoenix Mercury players at this same camp, whose season wrapped up on September 11th. 2 very different timelines. 2 very different conditioning levels. So when Sabrina Merchant describes watching Caitlin back in a live, game-speed environment, she's talking about the athlete who had been away from competition the longest, yet immediately throwing herself into FIBA-level physical contact without hesitation. And this is the part people keep overlooking. FIBA basketball isn't lighter than the WNBA. It's more physical, more demanding, and far less forgiving. Pause and really absorb that. All of 2024 was spent debating whether Caitlin Clark was being hit too hard in the WNBA. Meanwhile, FIBA play turns that intensity up another notch. And Caitlin didn't just survive it, she attacked it head-on.
It was a combination of like USA players going against USA players and then also USA players going against the scout team, which was just like players from small colleges all across North Carolina sort of helping out with that scout team practice. And, she looked like Caitlin, right? Like the step back 3 was there, the passes were there. When she was not playing with Aaliyah Boston, some of the bigs didn't know what to do with her passes. Like there was one time where she passed it to Hamby and Hamby like brought the ball down. It's like, you can't do that. Like this is not, you have to keep it up, right?
Right up, right.
Just like not expecting, where that was coming. But FIBA, naturally, just a lot more physical than other levels of basketball.
Listen closely to the detail she highlighted about those passing reads because that moment says everything. Caitlin was threading passes to post players who simply weren't ready for them. Enrique Abenbo catching the ball, bringing it down, and getting blocked, not because of poor skill, but because the pass arrived faster and higher than she expected, demanding an immediate finish. That's not a knock on Enrique at all. That's what happens when a facilitator operates on an entirely different basketball wavelength. Yes, Chelsea Gray delivers gorgeous passes, smooth, creative, and easy on the eye. But Caitlin Clark's passes carry another layer of intelligence. She isn't just delivering the ball. She's placing it precisely where your hands must be to score in one clean motion. No dip, no pause, no recovery window for the defense. That's elite-level playmaking, built on anticipation and timing. She's thinking multiple steps ahead, not just about destination but about how the ball arrives. When you spend every night running actions with Aaliyah Boston, that chemistry becomes instinct. At a national team camp throwing to Enrique for the first time, there's naturally a learning curve. The fact that Sabrina Merchant singled out this exact detail tells us something important. Caitlin was making passes so sharp, so advanced, that even seasoned WNBA players were caught off guard.
Physicality was interesting considering how long she's been out and the fact that she's still ramping up injury-wise, but she looked good. She was just like so happy to be there and like was individually like telling media members how nice it was just to like talk to them again and like that she was just part of the basketball process, even if that includes.
This wasn't WNBA level contact coming from that scout team, it was FIBA level physicality, and there's a massive difference between the two. Caitlin Clark, still easing her way back after a plantar fasciitis injury that wiped out nearly 2 months of her sophomore season, was being tested against players explicitly instructed to defend using international basketball standards. No soft whistles, no protective treatment, just constant pressure and full body resistance. Think back to all the noise during the 2024 season, the flagrant fouls, the shoulder checks, the non-stop debates over whether Caitlin was being targeted or hit too hard as a rookie. In comparison, FIBA basketball makes that look mild. International rules allow heavier contact, tighter grabs, and far more aggressive defensive schemes. And yet, according to Sabrina Merchant, Caitlin didn't just survive in that environment. She looked comfortable and composed, despite clearly being the most out-of-game conditioned player at the entire camp.
There you have it, fam. Caitlin Clark been an absolute beast at the training camp. Shout out to her, man. Now, I already kind of knew Kelsey Plum and Caitlin Clark was going to be going after it. All right, those are two players battling for that one position, right? And these are two players that absolutely asked crowds to give it to them.
Now focus on this part because it tells the real story. The step-back three was still there. The same signature shot that shattered the NCAA scoring record translated instantly to the WNBA and evolved into one of the most unguardable weapons in women's basketball. Against the very best defenders USA basketball can put on the floor, it was still falling, still lethal, still automatic. But what Sabrina Merchant shared next matters even more. Caitlin wasn't tense or guarded. She was genuinely happy to be there, going out of her way to talk with teammates, telling people how good it felt just to be back, to be part of the basketball rhythm again. That detail reveals everything. After a sophomore season cut short in July by injury, after watching the playoffs from home, after months of rehab and uncertainty, Caitlin Clark arrived at this camp and reminded everyone who she is. Not with trash talk, not with manufactured drama, but with substance and execution. She did it with that step-back three, with passes so sharp they caught elite players off balance, with the ability to compete at FIBA-level physicality while still working her way back into full game shape. And yes, there were moments where Caitlin was switched onto Kelsey Plum, getting bumped off her spot, called for a foul, and immediately barking at the refs. "She's grabbing me." Meanwhile, WNBA coaches sitting courtside were laughing, not mocking her, but recognizing the fire. That wasn't frustration. That was competitiveness fully alive again. There was another moment that perfectly captured the tone of this camp. Kelsey Plum finally fought her way through traffic after struggling earlier, finished at the rim, then immediately turned and shouted in the direction of Becky Hammon and Nikki Fargas. Both coaches burst out laughing because that reaction was pure classic Kelsey. Raw emotion, confidence, and competitive fire all rolled into one. Go back and really watch that exchange with Kelsey Plum. What you're seeing is two players battling for the same role. Two guards who feed off pressure and thrive when the energy spikes. This is the same Kelsey Plum who once told Spike Lee to speak up because she wanted to hear the trash talk louder. And this is the same Caitlin Clark who played entire college games with hostile crowds screaming at her and responded by silencing them with her play. Neither of these competitors backs down from anyone. According to Sabrina Merchant's reporting, that exact dynamic unfolded at this camp. Kelsey knocking Caitlin off her spot. Caitlin instantly barking at the officials for missed calls. WNBA coaches sitting courtside laughing because they recognize exactly what they're watching. Two elite guards going at each other without restraint. And here's the key takeaway. Caitlin Clark wasn't there to make a good impression. She was there to compete head-to-head with one of the best guards in the WNBA. And she held her ground, despite being the most out-of-game conditioned player in the building. Exactly. And that's what made this stretch so compelling. You could literally see the storylines carrying over from the WNBA season straight into this camp, and that continuity is important. Sabrina pointed out that moment where Kelsey Plum finally powered through traffic after struggling, then turned and yelled right in Becky Hammon and Nikki Farga's faces while both coaches laughed. That reaction wasn't criticism, it was respect. It was recognition of elite competitive fire. Classic Kelsey, as they put it. But what matters just as much is what Sabrina subtly layered on top of that moment. These weren't isolated incidents. The same rivalries, the same emotional intensity, the same edge that defined the 2024 WNBA season showed up again in these scrimmages. Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Plum going at each other. Caitlin visibly frustrated with officiating. Players refusing to dial anything back just because it was camp. That tells us this wasn't an exhibition run. It was real competition with real consequences. And everyone in that gym knew it. Carol Lawson was watching closely. USA basketball staff was evaluating every possession. WNBA coaches were observing from the sidelines. Every player understood that what happened over those 3 days in North Carolina would absolutely factor into Olympic roster decisions. Performances here matter. Reputations shift here. Yes, it was technically just a few days at camp. 3 days in North Carolina, even a bit of unexpected snow adding a winter feel to the south, but beneath that calm surface, something bigger was happening. You could clearly see what Carol Lawson is prioritizing as she begins to shape her imprint on this program. Toughness, carryover intensity, and players who don't turn competition off just because the setting changes. That's what made this camp more than interesting. It made it revealing. Here's why this moment carries real weight. When USA Basketball left Caitlin Clark off the 2024 Olympic roster, the official reasoning centered on roster balance, veteran familiarity, and a preference for players who had already moved through the program. That explanation ignited massive backlash, with fans arguing that the sport's biggest draw and most dynamic talent should have been included regardless of experience. And at the time, that decision was made before Caitlin had played a single WNBA game. It happened before she averaged 19 points and 9 assists over her first 5 professional appearances. Before the triple-double. Before she proved, under non-stop physical pressure, that her college dominance translated cleanly to the professional level, even while learning new systems and adjusting to unfamiliar teammates. Fast forward to January 2025, and the context is completely different. Caitlin now has a full WNBA season on her resume. Even with injuries limiting her run, she's shown she belongs. She's built chemistry, faced playoff-level intensity, and gained real professional credibility. And according to this training camp report, she's now showing USA Basketball exactly what they passed on. The step-back three still falling against elite defenders. The passing vision that catches seasoned WNBA veterans off guard. The competitive edge that has her barking at referees during a scrimmage. The ability to operate at FIBA-level physicality despite being the most out-of-game conditioned player in the gym. That's not an athlete hoping to earn a look. That's a player forcing a reassessment. Sabrina Merchant's reporting makes it clear, Caitlin Clark left a lasting impression. The precision of the details, the emphasis she chose, the tone of the evaluation all point in the same direction. This wasn't just a return from injury. It wasn't just a solid camp showing. It was a statement delivered at a very specific moment. Remember, Caitlin's last competitive game was July 15, 2024. And even after that long absence, she walked into this camp and reminded everyone why leaving her off the 2024 roster still doesn't sit right. Plantar fasciitis didn't just slow her down. It ended her season early, kept her out of the playoffs, and forced her to watch from home while the rest of the league battled for a championship. That meant months of recovery, months of rehab, and long stretches of uncertainty about when she'd truly be back at full strength. Then she arrives at this USA Basketball training camp and is thrown straight into 5-on-5 competition against the best players in the country. No warm-up period. No tune-up games. Just immediate action at FIBA-level physicality, with WNBA coaches tracking every possession. What makes Sabrina Merchant's description so telling is how normal Caitlin looked in that environment. The signature moves were still there. The timing was still sharp. The passes were still catching veteran players off guard. That doesn't happen by accident. It tells you exactly how Caitlin spent those months away. She wasn't just healing an injury. She was staying locked in, keeping her edge and preparing for this precise moment. Now put that next to the logic behind the 2024 Olympic roster decision. USA Basketball prioritized familiarity and program experience over star power and momentum. They chose players who already knew the system, who had international reps, who felt safe. And here's where that reasoning falls apart. It assumes elite talent and competitive fire can't overcome a lack of prior exposure. It assumes a player who has dominated every level she's ever touched somehow needs years of international seasoning before she can help Team USA. Caitlin Clark shattered the NCAA scoring record. She turned Iowa into a national championship threat. She brought unprecedented attention, energy, and growth to women's college basketball. And everything we're seeing at this camp suggests the same thing. Experience matters, but it has never been a prerequisite for greatness. Then Caitlin entered the WNBA and immediately became one of the league's most electrifying talents, thriving despite constant physical challenges and the learning curve of meshing with professional teammates. At what point does her resume speak for itself? At what point does USA Basketball look at her track record and think, we need to find a way to get this player on the roster? Here's what this training camp makes crystal clear. Caitlin Clark doesn't require years of international experience to compete at the highest level. What she needs is the opportunity, and when she got it at this camp, she delivered. The passes that caught veteran players off guard. The step-back three dropping over elite defenders. The competitive fire as she battled Kelsey Plum possession after possession, and called out referees during scrimmages. The ability to perform at FIBA-level physicality while still working back into full game shape. This isn't potential, it's production. It's real-time proof that she belongs on this roster. And the implications for USA Basketball are significant. The 2024 Olympics are behind us, but the next cycle is already underway. This camp isn't just practice. It's part of the evaluation process shaping the future of the program. Carol Lawson is leaving her mark, setting priorities, and watching how players respond under pressure. Caitlin Clark just showed exactly what she can do when given a chance to compete at this level. The question now, will that performance shift the conversation about Olympic roster construction? Will USA Basketball recognize that leaving one of the most exciting players off the roster could have been a misstep for the program's future? Or will they stick with the same formula that favors experience over star power? This camp might be the moment that answers that question. Sabrina's report may not provide all the answers, but it leaves one thing undeniable. Caitlin Clark arrived at this training camp and delivered against elite competition, facing FIBA-level physicality while still climbing back from months of injury rehab. The step-back three? Still lethal. The vision and passes? Still precise. The competitive fire? Still burning bright. Everything that has made Caitlin one of the most thrilling players in basketball was on full display in North Carolina. The bigger question now is how USA Basketball responds to that performance. Do they stick to prioritizing veteran experience and program familiarity? Or do they acknowledge that raw talent and unrelenting competitiveness can outweigh years in the system? This camp demonstrates clearly. Caitlin Clark doesn't need anyone's approval to prove she belongs at the highest level. She only needs the opportunity to compete. And when that chance was given, she delivered exactly as she did in college, reminding everyone why she's impossible to ignore. That's exactly what unfolded during her WNBA rookie season, and according to Sabrina's first-hand account, the story repeated itself at this USA Basketball training camp in North Carolina. Caitlin Clark showed up, competed against the nation's top players, and handled FIBA-level physicality while still working her way back into game shape. The ball is now squarely in USA Basketball's court. They've seen her skills, her competitiveness, and her ability to rise to the occasion. How they act on that information will reveal their priorities for the program moving forward, and it could determine whether the most electrifying player in women's basketball earns the chance to represent her country on the world stage. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think Caitlin Clark deserves a spot on the next Olympic roster based on what she showed at this camp? Or will USA Basketball stick to a veteran-first approach? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more updates, and hit the bell so you never miss the latest on women's basketball.